Fireman with his long-handled shovel feeding the red-hot moor, the noise of iron meeting iron on the swaying footplate, the intensity of Dad's concentration looking up the line for pinprick signals of red and green, checking the boiler pressure, opening and closing the steam regulator according to gradient and track. And then at the end, at the station platform, the carriage doors slamming as the passengers got off the train, their voices drifting into the night, oblivious of what we'd been through. I was astounded and bursting with pride. It literally made me cry like this when I got off. Anyway, finally, their mother and father saved up enough to send me to learn shorthand and typing. And I got a job at £1 a week as a newspaper reporter on a weekly paper. It was amazing. I'd written to every newspaper there possibly be. The war was on. I knew that we must have short of staff with men at way. So I finally got a letter saying, come Monday morning to the Ashton-under-Lyne Reporter, a weekly paper in a cotton town. And I climbed the stone stairs, and the man who sent me, called Middlehurst, was standing talking to the head printer. They were having a big row. So as soon as I got there, I said, excuse me, I'm Evans. He said, he grabbed a sheaf of paper and he shoved them into my hands. Evans, without any more ado, without even looking at me, he scooped up bunches of paper from the turmoil of his desk and thrust them into my hand. Asparagus, he mumbled in a rapid monotone. Asparagus, 4 copies and quick about it, laddie. It's okay, that's news happening. It's okay. Somebody should follow that cab. He went back to his confrontation with the printer. Asparagus? It was a delicacy unknown to Lancashire dinner tables. I'd barely heard of it. When I'd got in, the little old man at the window box writing on coarse copy paper, and he gave me some but didn't help me out. So I sat there and put the copy paper in a typewriter. You may remember that's a typewriter there in case anybody's never seen one. And so I sat there, and what did I pick up in the papers? There were the names and winners of a women's whist drive in Audenshaw, a note about a gift day at a Rotary Club, a typed sheet from an undertaker listing the names of mourners, a rambling report on Christianity in action at the Welbeck Baptist Church, a letter from a clergyman back from China after thrilling adventures, maddeningly unspecified, and a rattling page about a burst pipe at a Methodist church that doused the choir in steam and drenched the conductor. The correspondent testified that Mr. Joseph Thornley carried on unperturbed. Well, what was I make of this? There's not even a trace of asparagus nor any other vegetable. I didn't know what to do. I typed asparagus one at the top of the copy paper. I was in despair. This was my big chance. I'd got a chart in a newspaper and I was being asked to write a story. I couldn't work out what the hell it was. And then, as I was in despair there, a young man came, and not much older than me, rubbing his hands together like a heap, and he said, You're new. I'm Mr. Lawrence Taylor. Let me show you the ropes. Yes, he chuckled, picking up the bits of paper. Just write up these submissions separately, as paragraphs. As paragraphs? As paragraphs. Right. He decoded the sibilant Middlehurst mumble and saved my life. I rendered each of the submissions neatly into 6 typed paragraphs, removed the messy carbon paper required to make 4 copies, took the lot to Mr. Middlehurst, his head down as he fertilized another heap of asparagus. He ran a stubby black pencil over my first efforts in professional journalism, slouched out some words, and put the top sheets in the out tray. Glory, could it be that my first words were bound from print? And that they were is evident when I went back to the local library and read them quite not so long ago. At the end of the week, everybody was scurrying around, all the young reporters, and I wondered what the fuss was about. And the fuss was because the owner of the paper was arriving on a Friday, and I described him, Mr. Will. Mr. Will was from another planet. We were a pale, fidgety bunch in off-the-track suits. He, silver-haired, slim in his hand-tailored suit and suntanned from daily hours on the golf course, stood erectly among us, bracing his shoulders and gleaming with purpose. "Good paper this week," he said, exposing several gold teeth. He made a few more comments, and after an awkward silence, Mr. Middlehurst indicated, "This is the new boy, Mr. Andrew. He cycled all the way from Failsworth," Mr. Middlehurst added. "Very good," said Mr. Wilt. "Now, Evans, how many spokes are there in a bicycle wheel?" "I don't know, sir." "Find out. Curiosity's the thing in journalism. Curiosity. Ask questions, Evans. Good day." And he was gone. Well, every week when he came at the end of his session the following week, he said, "How long does it take a banana to ripen?" And the young reporter said, "I don't know. Curiosity. Find out." And so on and so on every week. I got used to this, and I was quite ready for him when I went to the magistrate's court as a reporter, and I counted all the steps on the way up just in case he asked me when he came out how many there were. Mr. Will was a remarkable man. He did actually advance the paper, but he wrote a column called Golf Causerie, which was arcane, nice stories about an enrichment, especially for people who know nothing about golf. Of course, we all were entranced by it when he began one of them. "There is no greater thrill than to drop your balls on a damp green," which was, of course, it would take him first to be all sexual, which he wasn't. The man was so innocent, it was unbelievable. The next time he asked one of my colleagues how many steps to the town hall, he said, "A lot." He said, "That won't do, count them." Anyway, I tried to get an education. I went into the Royal Air Force, separate story in itself. I hand-set my first newspaper. I discovered my first lesson in selling magazines. I was on a camp with lots of airmen who were very heroic in the war, flying with Americans and with themselves, win the Battle of Britain, going in bombers over Germany, and they were still there. And the camaraderie between them, between the working class boys and the officers, was terrific. And so I learned to shed some of my class consciousness. But I was basically sent there to be an assistant to the Air Commodore because of my shorthand and typing. I had a German prisoner helping me to type, and I became a corporal. But the point is that I really wanted to do something. I started teaching shorthand to the lovely daughters of the officers, which was very possibly productive. And then I started to start a newspaper. And I got a bundle of disc type, bits and pieces of metal with just one letter on them, and sorted them, and with 2 or 3 sergeants we hand-set a newspaper. And we sold out. And then when we started the following year with the ambitions to start a magazine, and so I had a great idea. I said, "Look, it's the Empire Flying School. Let's in the E put a Spitfire, and in this F put a Lancaster, and in this put a Typhoon, and all the planes that we had on the station, EFS," and I printed it blue. It was a total flop. It's the worst thing I've ever done in journalism. The guy said to me, "We work on bloody planes all day, and you put bloody planes on the cover of your bloody magazine. We're not buying that." And they didn't. And it was a venture which was paid for by our pockets. So I learned a lesson. And the following issue, a month later, my civilian colleague said, "Why don't you put a picture of our hometown film star on the cover?" I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Diana Fluck." I said, "Come again." I didn't know her. She later became Diana Dors, D-O-R-S, and was a famous British film star. But then she was Diana Fluck and said famously, "Make sure you get all the letters in my name right on the second. Don't have any bulbs going out." So I photographed her, or we photographed her, wearing pretty well nothing except a muff, and we sold out completely. I mean, I couldn't print enough copies of it. So sex sells, as Sarah Palin is proving at the moment. So that's why I didn't wear spandex tonight. And then, of course, I went to university. I mean, it was ridiculous, really. In England at the time, only 2% of the population could get to university. So people like me, who'd never been to a high school, didn't have much chance. I had no money either. However, the biggest obstacle was Latin. To get into a British university, you had to have Latin.